Who are you? This question obviously has many different answers. You can go to school, or be at home, or go to work, or any other occupation, and the answer to this question will change. So you rotate through different identities on a regular basis. But in an ultimate sense, none of the answers to these questions are what you really are, unchangingly. Because as you rotate through these different identities, there's something constant that's aware of the changes that come and go. So who is that? What is that? And ultimately, this question, who am I, isn't really intended to receive an answer. Because if you find yourself, then you're still lost. You're still entertaining a delusion of something that you're not. If you're aware of it as an object, then you are not that. So the answer might come up that you are awareness. But you also have to be careful to not make this another object of knowledge. We have the concept of awareness, and that's pointing to something which is beyond words. And even without the word, it can still, in a sneaky way, become an object of knowledge, just a non-conceptual object. You can imagine that there's a thing called awareness that you are. And this is another delusion. So you could say that you're silence. Pure silence beyond the word silence. And there can be no real confirmation that you are the silence, because the confirmation in and of itself is another object of knowledge. And you may have practiced self-inquiry before, which is the inner investigation to find out what you really are. So, for example, throughout the day, as you think thoughts and do your ordinary daily activities, instead of focusing all of your attention on the content of the experience, you reverse your attention and look for the one to whom the experience is arising. So a thought appears. Ignore the content of the thought. Who's the one that is aware that there's a thought? Where are they? What is their source? And you find that as soon as you look for this alleged center of the experience, the separate self, the thought vanishes. So you never really get an answer to the question, who am I? Or if you do, again, it's another delusion. You shouldn't be satisfied with an answer to this question in an ultimate sense. I'm not saying it doesn't have its practical purposes. Like if someone on the street asks, who are you? You can give a response to that, of course, in a relative sense. But in an ultimate sense, don't be satisfied with an answer. So the question comes up, does this practice of self-inquiry have an end to it? And in a very ironic way, the end isn't going to be some obvious event that happens to you. It's not about finding a new experience, or getting the answer that you can cling on to. The end of self-inquiry is much more subtle than that. It's when the question itself just stops arising. Because the very impetus to ask this question, who am I, presupposes that there is a separate, stable you who could be asking the question. So it's not that the question has an ultimate answer, it's that the very existence of the question presupposes something that isn't really true. So you may find yourself doing self-inquiry, being aware of the content of the experience and looking for the one who is aware of that experience, and then trying to pay attention to who that is and just following the I sense, the sense of separate self. You may find that the questions arise less and less in any kind of serious way. So this I sense gradually dissolves. It's not that there really is a you that dissolves. It's not that there's an ego that has to be destroyed. It's that the very sense that there is a you, that sense itself, is what dissipates. So the sense of separate self isn't a real separate boundary, but it gives the illusion that there is a separate boundary between you and the experience. And whenever this I sense dissolves completely, this is sometimes an aha moment. But it's not a moment that happens to anyone. It's not a new experience that someone has. It's just an impersonal revelation, something that dawns upon itself, not some separate agent, some locus of control. So ironically, this aha moment results in pure silence of the heart. It's not anything that you can walk away with as an attainment or something that you have acquired, because it's the complete loss of something that never really had its own reality. And there's a very quiet implication of this, in which the experience that previously seemed to be happening to someone is now recognized to be none other than all that there is. It just isn't separate from anyone or anything else. So the division that seemed to be fragmenting everything, putting everything into conceptual boxes, it completely vanishes. So there's nothing left but the obvious wholeness of everything. And one might think that when this boundary dissolves, that the body, the physical form, would become incapable of navigating the world, that it would stop using concepts. But this is a misunderstanding, because it's not about the body having any kind of new attainment or revelation in itself. The body is actually completely irrelevant to this self-inquiry business. It's not about the body being any particular way or changing the way that it speaks to accommodate for this revelation that there is no self or no separate self. So the body can still continue to speak and act as if there's a self, And ironically, all the while, there's this inner recognition, this quiet obviousness that none of it's really true. It's just conditioning unfolding, it's old karma running off. So the body continues to act out its role of a character in a story where there seem to be separate agents, but there's an inner knowing which doesn't belong to anyone, that it's just an illusory play. So seemingly on the outside, not that there's really an outside, but in this external world, there isn't really any kind of clear difference that's made from seeking the self to no longer seeking the self. Yet inwardly, not that there's a real inner, but insofar as the mental space goes, there's an obvious difference where there just isn't any questioning anymore, because that prior presupposition is no longer being made, that there is someone making the body do things, or someone that the experience is happening to. That whole illusion gets cleared up. So inwardly, there's this profound peace. There's no longer any disturbances of trying to find something. And this inner peace can't really be spoken with any kind of accuracy. It just is in and of itself. It can't be translated into words. And the ironic thing, again, is that you can't do anything with this inner peace. Not just because there isn't anyone to do anything with it, but because it just isn't practical, because it sees no division. And the whole crux of something being practical is that there's something other in order for there to be a position to get some kind of advantage. And if there's no otherness, then there's no advantage or disadvantage. So it just isn't practical.